Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I am excited to be with you here today. We've got a very special guest in the house, which we are going to unpack all things health, wellness, mindfulness, all of the above. Before we do, I want to give a little love to our sponsors for showing up for us continuously. Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where your heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, listen to the neurofeedback stories of transformation in the middle of this podcast. Neurofeedback effectively treats everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain today. Special shout out to the Declan James watches. We are big fans of them. They are local and veteran owned. 10% of all their proceeds go back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And last but not least, our very own Colorado Clownfish Swim School, swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. We believe in life skills through sports. So come waterproof your family today. Check them out at coloradoclownfish.com. Without further ado, the Ashton August. Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to our conversation today.
Yes, and we have to give a special thank you to Tamara that connected us, another Colorado power player in the mix. Ashton is from Colorado. She's got an amazing retreat that's going to be happening in Colorado, so we'll unpack that. But she's an author, entrepreneur, consultant in the wellness space, yoga and meditation guide. She loves animals. We have so much in common. She's a thriving YouTube channel that I just checked out before we got on the mic, and I'm like, this human is crushing it. So go check out all her meditation and yoga classes that are completely free. We'll talk about her books. Before we do any of that, let's talk about the human behind the mission. Ashton, tell us about young Ashton. How were you as a kid?
Well, thank you for that intro. And I love this question. I think it's so fun to reflect on our past and how that makes us who we are today. It's funny, as I mentioned to you right before we went on air, I was such a shy child. I'm an only child from a small and close-knit family. And so I grew up kind of just more comfortable being around the adults and hanging out with my dog than hanging out with kids my own age. I also did move around a lot as a kid growing up. So I was constantly the new kid. And I did unfortunately experience a lot of bullying in school. And all of that did not help the shy factor. But I was a child who loved animals, especially dogs and horses, and loved being in the woods. My grandparents lived in Evergreen, Colorado, which is a sweet little mountain town. And so I just loved like exploring the woods with my dog Bo and going on road trips with my grandparents in the summer because my parents were divorced and always worked. So I was very blessed to have a really sweet upbringing with my grandparents and in a beautiful place. So my grandma was a painter and just loved to paint and be in nature. And my grandfather was a storyteller. And these are the things that kind of helped to shape who I was as a kid and my interests. And I love to write. So even at a young age, I remember writing a little book of poetry in 5th grade that got published in the school library.
Wow. Okay. That's big.
So, yeah. Super cute. So that's me in the childhood in a brief nutshell.
I love it. Well, Evergreen's a super fan. I think I've mentioned this in shows like in the 100, so a moons ago, but I've always wanted to have a house out there. The land is getting wildly expensive, but it's gorgeous. And the houses aren't on top of each other. It gets such a beautiful space. And it's a magical place. And we grew up playing like ice. I had 3 brothers. So we played ice hockey on the pond out there, or the lake, I guess.
Oh,
We have. Oh, okay. We've probably crossed paths more than we know. Colorado's so small, but it's pretty wild.
And I love that we're both Colorado natives, and it's always so fun to see how our paths have crossed over time.
Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting to me. I want to lean into this a little bit because I think we do have a lot of like introverts that kind of become extroverts or have these extrovert tendencies. I would consider myself kind of both. Like I really love humans and energy, but then I go home and I around my dogs and it's like shutdown time. But as a kiddo, how did you, and you said the bullying, I think that's obviously a very relevant conversation for our young humans today. How did you navigate through some of that with the lack of mental health conversation back in the day?
Whew. And that's a big one because there are a lot of mental health issues in my family, and I have lived with anxiety my entire life. In fact, that's why I felt really compelled to write an entire book of mindfulness practices for anxiety. And so, honestly, I was a very nervous, anxious child. I did find a lot of comfort in reading and journaling, even from a young age. I found a lot of comfort in animals. I think, that's why emotional support animals are so, effective and powerful. They have such a presence and a gift in that sense. And then I really ground down to being with my family. So I think even now, that's why family is so important to me, because it's always been sort of that grounding guidepost. But yes, it's tough. And that's why I am such a mental health advocate now, because experiencing bullying and just the normal things of growing up and getting older and figuring things out, without having those mental health resources, you can feel completely isolated. And many, many people do, as we know.
Absolutely. Well, and especially if you are in like this house with land and in the woods, like you are literally kind of isolated, which is a beautiful thing, but also it's really important to intentionally get out of there and go connect and get back out into like, communities and people and whatnot. But as a young person, it's just so difficult, and navigating that space, 15, 20, 30 years ago, we never talked about, mental health and what's going on. And I think our kids with social media nowadays have even more pressure than we did. And it's a totally different conversation. So do you have any like tips or tricks? Like, I don't know if you work with young people at all, but like initial health and wellness or mindfulness practices that you could suggest for parents for their young kids, or for those like, 18 to 25-year-olds listening?
Yeah, great question. We have an article on our website, YouAligned.com, and it's 15 mindfulness practices to teach your kids. And it's one of our top performing articles of all time. So clearly there's a lot of interest in mindfulness for children. And oh my goodness, Kristen, like the point that you're touching on, and then I'll get back to the answer, but the point that you're touching on is having simple mindfulness practices can be a huge resource for kids. And, for that age group in particular, I think the most important thing when we are so connected to our devices is to completely unplug and to establish a very simple mindfulness practice, because also at that age, what we don't want is to, overwhelm them with, well, then do this and then do this and build out this whole big routine. It's, can we put the device down? Mm-hmm. Can we put a hand on our body and connect? Can we take a deep breath and just come into this present moment? And something so simple can be so profound and effective because it's in that simplicity of just taking a pause. So starting there is such an important practice, because it brings us back into our bodies and it brings us back into ourselves, because technology and all these devices are completely disconnecting us from that.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. It's funny because I think as mission-driven humans or hard workers, we always think it's got to be this really grand, hard solution. And it is just about taking a moment, taking a breath, grounding. And I love that you straddle these two worlds of like healing and yoga and mindfulness, and being that creator. Social media for us as entrepreneurs is really a gift. It allows us to compete with some of these really major corporations, but it's still a mindfulness practice and awareness for us on the daily of how much am I on social media? How much am I worrying about my YouTube channel? Do I need to do a thing today? Like, it's never not on. How do you personally manage that and maintain your own mental health around social media specifically?
I'm so happy you asked this.
We're here for you.
This has been the topic of conversation with me and in my circle for the last couple weeks. And it's this.
Okay.
In life, and especially, in our vein of personal development and self-growth and all of these things, it can be easy to fall into a personal growth deficit, meaning that all of a sudden, and trust me, this is connected.
You're good. Go with it.
Sudden, we've become so habitualized to locate a quote unquote issue in ourselves and then fix said issue. And then we start to view everything as an issue if we don't approve of it, right? And so now we're putting labels on this aspect of my personality is okay. This aspect is not okay. It's wrong somehow. How this connects to social media is social media is a wonderful example of one of the societal institutions where everyone says, well, you got to do it. You got to do it a certain way. You got to be consistent. And so we're all feeling like it's a necessity and we ought to be doing it a certain way. But the question becomes, is it something wrong with you if you require boundaries? Is it something that you're doing, quote unquote, wrong if social media affects you in a negative way? Or perhaps is that simply just information to know about yourself and then to adjust accordingly? Because what had happened for me anyway is I was saying, well, you know what? I've owned a company for 10 years and I shouldn't let social media affect me the way that it does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about this with my mindset coach who says, Ashton, what if it can just be okay that social media affects you? And so instead of thinking that you're wrong or you're weak or you're somehow just, you need to fix that and be better, what if you just accept that that's who you are as a human being? You allow that to be okay, and then you adjust accordingly. If that means that someone else manages your socials for your company, or that you don't check your social media at night, whatever boundaries and like parameters that you need to put on it to make it feel good for you, who can say that that's wrong or that, you shouldn't be having to do it that way? The point is, I think in life, a lot of things, we think we have to do it a certain way and fit ourselves into that mold instead of taking a step back, honoring what we are and our needs, and then adjusting that mold accordingly. I hope that makes sense. I hope that lands.
Absolutely. Well, it's so funny because I think social media starts out as this fun thing and you're on it and you're just showing whatever. And then as business people, like you start to shift your content towards the business, and then Canva comes in and all that. Like if you look at Instagram and like even famous people, when they start to pop off, it's like raw, whatever. And you can see the point when it hits to like that corporate vibe of like, now it's produced, now it's professional.
Yeah.
And it's that weird, like that pivot point. And I'm not mad at either side because I do think it's a necessary tool. And it really is a blessing for entrepreneurs and people working to get their voice out, because we never had this, prior to the, 2000s.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's such an advantage. And it's just like fitness or alcohol or anything, like everything almost in moderation, asterisk in that, because moderation, that's the irony of Turmeric and Tequila. We're always working on balance and moderation. But
I love that.
Yeah, we have this mentality of more is more. And then if you can't handle that, you're fixing something within yourself. And it's like, well, actually, you can kind of have faith. And this is something I'm working on, that universe, God, Madonna, whatever you believe, or people will show up for you without you doing a post every single day or doing it with the recipe for success on social media.
That's right. And I loved your more is more point. I don't know if you saw it. It made my shoulders drop. It's like, yes, that's exactly it. And to finish that point, yes, I think that it is a great resource, and we just need to make it work on our terms and understand what those terms are and act accordingly. And then that relationship can be a healthy one.
Absolutely.
And I noticed for me and so many other people, it just takes on a lot of mental bandwidth for whatever reason, whether it's you're concerned you're not posting enough, you're wondering why your engagement's down, you got a nasty comment, like all the things. So, I think the bottom line is, for me anyway, that in a world and a life that is so complex and chaotic and there's so much unrest, I would love a simple, slow, mindful life.
Amen. That is exactly what I'm working on this year. And if you can tell by my energy, that is not my authentic space. Like we're go. And I love the hype and the fun and the ease through things without having to train so hard and lift 1,000,000 pounds and run through the wall like the Kool-Aid man and all that. Like it doesn't have to be that hard. And I think we do think, or we get addicted to that, me speaking for myself, of doing the hard thing and it always being hard, and even looking in the mirror being like, God, I'm not as fit as I was, but I'm kind of okay with that. I'm okay with what I did today. I'm almost uncomfortable being okay. I'm like, shit, should I be okay with this? Like,
what is this?
Yeah. Do you ever feel that?
What's this new thing? Yes, more and more, because the work is to continue, leading with self-compassion and honoring our needs. And as we do that more and more, we're going to feel okay and then question that, because that's unfamiliar, because we've spent our lives saying more is more and go. And my worth is attached to my level of output.
Yep.
And
Amen.
The only reason that I'm speaking what I'm speaking now is because I've gone through 2 rounds, not just one, two,
Hey.
of extreme and full burnout.
Yeah.
And it was from trying to be the Kool-Aid guy running through the wall. And after the second time, when I just hit that wall and fell, I was like, oh, so that's not the way to do things. You can't just burn the candle from both ends and expect that to last.
Well, and Universal shut you down. I mean, been doing, at one point I had a client in the health and wellness space, and we were doing blood panels for the Cleveland Clinic for people to kind of like optimize their performance and lean in. And they're like, well, I'm like, well, I can't sell this until I do it. So I did it. And they're like, well, your liver's testing high. And this is when I was competing, so we weren't drinking or anything like that. And, liver is associated with anger. But I was doing all these tests and I'm like, I don't know what, like, I'm healthy. Everything's coming back. But when I reflect, I was like, oh my God, this was the awareness of me, like mind body connect, and like universe, God Madonna was shutting me down, being like, I was very angry. I was in a tough situation with my gym and competing, and there was this drama going on that was so out of alignment with who I am as a human, and it was showing up in my body. So I think
Wow.
Universal really shuts you down when you're not listening, and burnout happens, and then you're totally checked out where you are still, and you're like, okay, what is it that I need to know, because we're missing something, and like we're at full shutdown. And most of, I think, my varsity humans, we get to that level. If we're not listening the whole time until it's like you're so broken down or injured or suffering or mental health is so bad that you're like, you're incapacitated.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's when the practice of mindfulness, even, as I shared earlier, that taking a moment to get into your body is where we start to be able to get ahead of that burnout. So instead of it hitting us like a brick wall, it's like, okay, I'm noticing that my energy levels are starting to decrease, or I'm noticing that I'm really in need of a break, or, whatever it is. It just helps you better assess in, like you said, in honesty of where you're at and what you need.
Absolutely. I want to also note, because social media, it is such a gift, but on the flip side, you realize that even influencers or leaders are still susceptible to what it's designed to do. And that is to keep you engaged. It is to make you feel a certain way. Like, these are businesses. So it's such a tricky like balance and like juxtaposition that you have to like use it for a tool and then get out, because you are also being used as a tool. Like, it's all this, it's this two-way street, but it's again, it's such a good thing. I had this YouTube, they had a meetup with other creators out here, and there's kids on there. I say kids because they were 25, but young adults that were creators, and they had like 2.5 million followers. Like, I was surprised to be in the room because we weren't on their level. And I asked one of the guys that was hosting, he had the 2.5 million followers, and I was like, man, he'd been doing it 14 years. I'm like, what is your balance as a 25-year-old where you're doing what, this is your livelihood, you're doing what the algorithm wants you to and wants you to show up, and you're just saying what you want to say, and you're doing what you want to do. And he's like, at this point, and again, wise beyond his years, he's like, I have an agent, I let him handle all the money and everything else, but he's like, I just do what I want to do, and I just keep showing up, and I let that be. I don't pay attention to the algorithm or anything else. And I'm like, but that's such a hot catch-22 of like, do you not do enough to like stay up with it and promote your message because you believe in what you're saying and do the dance, or do you just say what you want to say, and if 11 people see it, then so be it? Do you have any struggle with that, kind of being in that space, or do you just let it go?
Well, that's tough. I wonder if that's always been his approach, like, because as you're growing, it sounds like he probably did get such a good, big following because he's so authentic. And so obviously people love that. In terms of our approach, it started with putting out videos really consistently. So when we first started our YouTube channel, we have an online membership side called YouAligned Classes. And this is actually an interesting little quick like background of how we got into what we do now. When we started, we were an online magazine, like an online yoga and wellness magazine. And we would do a lot of articles on all topics of, meditation and healthy recipes and all these things. But part of how we would make our revenue is we would do product reviews. And so that was advertising. It was like the original UGC.
Hey.
Anyway, so I bring that up because that's how we started doing videos. We started to do product review videos. And then we said, well, hey, why don't we just make like yoga and meditation and fitness videos and put those on YouTube too? So that's how it started. And we were putting videos out really consistently. YouTube is one of those content machines that asks for consistency and volume. And so we did that, and we did build up a significant subscriber base. And also not to the 2.5 million level, but hey.
Getting there.
Yes. And that base grew substantially, of course, with COVID and during lockdown when everyone's practicing online.
Thank you for sharing that. And so we're going to get into more of your specific entrepreneurship around the projects going on. But I'm inspired, in 2025 for our young people, all people, but really our young people, to get on the mic, get on YouTube, be creators. I think now more than ever, everybody's individual voice is really, really important. And then the place into getting to that space of whatever you consider success is on social media is kind of irrelevant. It's more about just doing the process, but listen to different people's journeys on how they've done it and why. And I always think the authentic play is the one. But then on the flip side, there are important pieces where you can, lean into the algorithm without compromising your authenticity because you want your voice to hear, because you have something to share. So it's always this like tightrope line to walk, but there's many ways to do it. And I just think it's now more than ever, it's more important to get out there and share whatever it is you have to share, because we're in a space where there are a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's, we don't really know what's going on environmentally, politically, like all this stuff. But if we have real people getting on the mic saying real things and sharing, I really think that's a solution to, as cliche as a better world, with us doing our thing. And we still got to approach it like a business. So it's always this tightrope walk that's tough to navigate.
Hi there. This is Laura Mahoney from Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. We are bringing you stories of transformation each podcast. Imagine how we can transform your life. Long COVID. I had COVID a few years ago. It was the worst, during and especially after. I never fully recovered from COVID until I started neurofeedback. It turns out I had long COVID, which for me meant napping 2 to 4 times a day. It was debilitating, so much so that I lost my life. My relationship suffered, and I even lost the small business that I loved and I owned. I serendipitously found neurofeedback, and it has absolutely transformed my life. After COVID, napping was a part-time job, taking up to 20 hours or more per week of my time. After starting neurofeedback treatments, my fatigue went away, and with it, the napping. I am so happy to say that I am now present in my life and no longer take naps. I love connecting with my family and friends again, and I have time to be with them. I also am now looking for a job, something that I didn't think would ever happen again. Feeling trapped and hopeless in my life has been replaced with a lust for life, and I can't wait to see what my future holds. All thanks to neurofeedback.
Yeah, absolutely. It truly is. But you said it so eloquently that it's a matter of getting out and doing it and finding a way that allows you to express yourself authentically, not just in terms of what you're saying, but who you are. So like, how do you want to show up? And it's something that you and I were starting to talk about earlier off air. It brings up for me the concept of progress over perfection. Yep. Because I think a non-starter for so many people is, well, I have this vision, but how do I get started? And how I can't even think about how I can get it off the ground. So or it's got to be perfect, right? And so the progress over perfection mantra gives you that permission slip essentially to say, okay, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. Who is perfect? No one, nothing. Right. So I'm just gonna do my best in that moment, show up, give it my best, and then let that be enough.
Boom. And people want to see that. They don't want to see that. They want to see that you're in it with them and like the real process of it. Hence asking the questions we are.
Yes, but that's what builds the loyalty, right? Like that's what makes us, they always say people fall in love with the story, not the brand. And that's what makes us stand out and have people look up to and want to, follow our lead or whatever, is just like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. Let's go.
Absolutely. And I think it's really beautiful that yours was so filled with your soul and your authentic voice and what you want to say. And then one project led to another. You've got this incredible YouAligned.com and the YouTube channel. You've got 3 books, one of which we have right here, which I'm really excited about. So if you're watching this on video, you can see, if you follow my socials, I do a quote a day. So I'm excited to work this into the rotation and we'll tag, but give us a quick 411 on your 3 books, 101 mindfulness practices, 101 mindfulness practices to ease anxiety, a year of self-motivation for women, and learn, shift, grow. You're out here doing work. So like, give us a quick piece on what inspired all 3 of these.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for that lovely little shout out. And hey, like I told you earlier, I've been writing since I was a kid, and I always, thought I wanted to be a magazine writer. And then I grew up and I just made my own instead. So
there you go. Exactly. Oh, that's right.
And the first book, I literally wrote it in 2 weekends. It was like all the practices that I was doing and everything that I had read and really learned, because what led me to yoga first was philosophy and then kind of getting into spirituality. And then I found yoga. And so anyway, it was just like after like a decade of taking all this in, I just had so much that I wanted to pour into this book. So that was Learn, Grow, Shift that came out first. And that was a self-published book. So I always love to share, because that's part of the journey too, is that first book, I just wanted to get it out. So I self-published on Amazon and did it. At the time I had a yoga studio in Denver called Zen Den. So I primarily just sold it out of the studio. Then that led to me getting a book deal for the second book, which is the one in your background right now, A Year of Self-Motivation for Women, which is a daily companion of quotes. So I look forward to seeing which ones you share, and short guided practices and affirmations, all in the motivational genre. And finally, my third book, 101 Mindfulness Practices to Ease Anxiety, that's on pre-order. So that officially hits the shelves in April. And it's been lovely. And hey, fun fact, I know that we've got a lot of entrepreneurs and authors and writers in the audience. I learned recently, tell me if you knew this, Kristen, that pre-orders are the most important part of a book launch's success. The amount of pre-orders that a book gets is what dictates often books getting on bestseller lists.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I was like, oh my goodness, that's great intel. So now.
Well, I was going to say, go pre-order. Let's support our girl out here. Cause it's just like the social media conversation. It's like the algorithm, like how do we break through? Because your heart and soul is into this and you really have something to say. So you really do need to do the dance and you want to. It's just the line of like how much, but yes, I think and good for you for sharing that. So people know, because we do have more conscious consumers than ever, especially amongst our young humans. Like they'll do it just because. So I think it's important for you to share that. So thank you for sharing that fact. I had no idea. And the book journey is a whole podcast in itself as well.
Oh, it is. And I'm always so happy to discuss it. And I do consulting in the wellness space, as you mentioned. And some of my clients are book specific, writing specific, which is so fun for me.
Okay.
So, but, I think on your point of, getting out there and sharing what you're passionate about and the way in which that I just, showed up and asked for support. I think that's really important and I talk a lot with my clients about this, because I work with a lot of teachers or creatives that have a very hard time with self-promotion, because Kristen, as well as anyone, and you are excellent at it, by the way.
Well, thank you.
It can be very tricky, and you never want to feel slimy. You never want to feel like you're selling yourself. You never want other people to feel like that. And so at the same time, though, as I remind my clients and my teachers and everyone that I work with, is you have these incredible gifts to share with the world. And so if you're not talking about it, you're doing all of your potential students, clients, whatever, a disservice, because they don't know about you. Yeah. And so it's not about you. It's about promoting your gifts that you have as your purpose in this lifetime, and doing it in a way that allows other people to find you and benefit from those gifts. And Kristen, if I can just give you your flowers, not that I can compete with those gorgeous flowers in the background, but if I can just give you your flowers, that is what you do so well, because you are so passionate and you show up so strongly in the space with that passion, and it's a light and it's magnetic and people want to be about it and support you and be a part of it. And so Kristen's just a beautiful example of how to lead with your passion and let that speak for itself.
Well, thank you. Receive. That's really nice. I really appreciate that. And it means a lot coming from you, because I know you are such a grounded, soulful human. And I know you put your full heart into all that you do. So I get it. And I really empathize with that. I have the same conversations with clients around like, God, the self-promotion. I'm like, man, if you just find the purpose and you live in it, that's the service. So switch the narrative of it really being about you. And I think people might look at us being like, oh, well, it's easy. You've done this and that. And it's like, no, it's still a constant struggle. But, and you've talked about this, I know I have failed enough in things that if you can learn from any of my successes, but mostly my failures, like take that intel and streamline your own journey. I'm completely confident in sharing those things, because I know how much I've learned, that I really do feel that duty to share. So if I can pop on and say a quick quip and it helps one person and however many people see it, then that's enough.
That's it. That's it, babe. And that's why we're like soul sisters. Cause that's what I always say. If my work has helped one person,
Yeah.
then it's been worth it. I mean, and so what a gift to your point about social media. Cause it's easy to be really negative about it. I can be, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but that's one gift of that, is just being able to have that ability to impact. It's a
Absolutely.
resource for that.
And I would say for the viewers too, hold some space for our influencers. I know that can be very cringy in 2025. We actually printed a bunch of shirts that said influencer on it just to poke the bear and do the most. But it's pretty vulnerable space to show up every day and say, like, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm going through, especially if you're really authentic in it. So, like your friends' posts, engage with media, like do the thing, get the pre-order, go out of your way, because it's not easy. Even if it looks easy, it's not easy to put it all out there and see what people think.
It is so true. Yeah, it's true. And I think that compassion is important, because face to face, for the most part, are kind humans.
Yeah.
And yet online people can be so mean, so hurtful.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of hurt people out there, and hurt people. So we can outshine that though with the good.
Okay.
And on the note of in real life, tell us about this retreat you have coming in Jefferson, Colorado. I think also in 2025, we've got all this digital stuff happening, but the in real life IRL is going to be more powerful than ever. We need to unite and do the Care Bear stare and get all of our power players together. It's the time. So tell us about it. What's going down?
I love that so much. We have an article on YouAligned about the wellness trends of 2025, and you nailed it. One of them is in-person events again, because things have gotten so virtual that now everyone's craving the human-to-human connection and Care Bear stare. So that's what I'm doing with these retreats. I am the yoga and meditation facilitator for Resurgence Retreats. This is a women's healing retreat that takes place 2 times a year in beautiful Jefferson, Colorado, which is just this remote, but only a couple hours from the city, forest town, my favorite, and in this big, beautiful retreat venue. So it's 3 days of guided meditation, yoga. We do sound healing. There's an optional guided mushroom journey. So plant medicine component as well. Gotta love Colorado, bringing forth the decriminalization. And so it's called a women's healing retreat, because it's not just an opportunity to take a long weekend for yourself and be immersed in wellness and self-care and community support. It's also an opportunity to really like clear and let go of whatever it is that you're healing from and working through in a powerful and impactful and safe space. So it's really exciting. I have no problem sharing about the retreat because I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And the next one's in April, and we do have a few spots left for anyone who's interested. And either way, I would love for you all to just, if you're interested, check out the website, jump on the email list. We do a lot of local events too. I'll tell you more off air, Kristen. I'm doing one next month that I would love to see you for.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for asking. And I love in-person offerings these days, especially with all of my business being online.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the thing. It's soul fuel for us as well. Like that energy exchange is really incredible and so necessary, because the online thing, even if you're introverted or however you package yourself, it's just this necessary energy that just keeps us all vibing and thriving and doing what we're supposed to be doing. I do have 2 more questions. That my last one's my favorite, but I have to lean into this just a little bit because I know you've got the science and education, the background, and obviously spirituality, but I'm very curious on how you feel around intuition. I know we're all intuitive. We all need to tap in, but I think people overlook so much of just trusting your gut and leaning into that. And I think the more you lean in, the more, like you said, your book just downloads, like things just come through. I'm very curious on your stance on intuition. Have you become more intuitive over the years, and how much of that, like this letting go, things that just are, have guided your path?
You're so good at what you do. Your questions are so fun. Intuition is something that I've always been aware of and always felt that somehow I just didn't have it. Somehow it skipped me. And it took years, until recently, actually, to get connected enough with myself, with my body, and with my emotions and self-awareness, because that's like the key 2 pieces right there to intuition, is your self-awareness and using that self-awareness to gauge the emotions and let that be what feels into your gut. So intuition is a very real thing, and we all possess it. Intuition is like a muscle that we can strengthen. And so it's fun to start with little things, like go into your kitchen, open up your refrigerator, and just kind of ask your body what it wants. Like just little practices of connecting and taking that moment. And then, of course, as you mentioned, it's a gut feeling, right? So we've all had the gut feelings. But the point is, when you have one next, can you pause and feel into that a little bit further and notice if your tendency typically is to just be like, yeah, anyway, dismiss that, go back up to the brain and logic it, try to force something into being. So I love working with my intuition, and I do it more and more these days. And the more that I do it, the more I see that, wow, I am powerfully intuitive. It didn't skip me. And the final piece that I'll say on that is a great way, if you're like I was, and you're like, I don't know, I think it did skip me. One way to start connecting with yourself, and this is a beautiful healing practice anyway, so get to sneak it in, is to bring a hand over your heart and a hand over your stomach and close your eyes or take a deep breath and say, I love you and I'm listening.
I love you and I'm listening.
And sometimes when you do that, the insight comes through instantly. So I did this practice when I was having really, really potent anxiety one day, and I was driving, and I was kind of ruminating on a couple things in my mind. And I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this right here, right now. And I did it. And I immediately started to cry, which I'm typically not a crier.
Okay.
And it was like teenage Ashton was being triggered and had something to say.
Hey.
And that was actually the root of the anxiety. And so taking that moment, that pause, is such a powerful way. And sometimes it won't. Sometimes the insight will not come through right away. And that's okay. But just trust that over time it will. And that over time and with practice, you'll sharpen that ability. So to me, that practice is a nice path to deepening your intuition and to activating it and to saying, it's okay, you can come out.
Yeah, I love that. Because we've kind of heard a lot of things over the years being in the space, and I love that. And like you, it's taking me time, but I always had these very clear intuitions, like even in college, like Termeric, and I was like, God, I want to be the star athlete. And it's like, now's not your time. Like I just had this weird thing. So I listened, but you're only in your own head. So you think everyone's like you. So you just think it's normal. But I think if people, and I'm also on this journey, just listen, all answers are within. Like you hear that in everything, but it's so hard to believe it until you really sit and listen. And then certain little affirmations around that start to happen. You're like, fuck, okay, I'm going to start listening. Like I'm listening now.
Yes, it's so true. But that's like, it's one of life's great challenges, is separating your thinking mind of like, well, ego and like needs and desires and everything from your heart, your intuition of like, what is the truth of the matter?
Yep. Yeah. We'll learn. We'll get there. We're out there with you. For listening, you're identifying, like we're in it with you.
Yes.
I could have a million more questions for you, but I do have to ask this last one. It's my favorite. What is success to you?
Ooh, I love it. Success is having fulfillment in what you do and contentment with where you are. No one can define your version of success except for you. And so often success is societally defined by, well, when you get the promotion, you get the corner office, you get the new car, whatever. To me, if those things can be great, if they make you feel great. But to me, having freedom in choice, having contentment in your day-to-day life and reality, and having an inner sense of freedom that comes from, doing the work and removing limiting beliefs, working through past traumas, addressing those shadows that are ultimately our greatest teachers. When we are in that mode, that is success.
Amen. I like the shadows are the greatest teachers. That's so true. It's so well said. I love that. I don't, have you thought about that before? Have you talked about it, or is that just comes through?
It's, as soon as you asked me, I wished I was home, because I had this fortune from a fortune cookie
Hey, universe comes through however it needs to.
I have had some profound fortunes in my day.
I believe it.
Oh my gosh. And it said something along the lines of, no one can define your success but you. But the way that it said it was so poignant that I've thought about it a lot. And especially when, everyone's in this race to be more successful, to make more money, whatever. I don't want to buy into that.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like what should matter. Impact is what matters. And then feeling the fulfillment and being able to carry out your purpose.
Absolutely. Living that life of service. I think you can go down that route, or many winds and turns, but it's that internal piece that you've got to find. And it's all different for all of us. I will be clear with universe. I'm here for the green Lamborghini that I've always wanted. So we'll put that out there alongside mindfulness, wellness, and just health in general.
You are allowed to have that both. That's a both right there, sister.
Let's go. I'll drive it to Evergreen. No, it's not in the snow, but it's so real. And that freedom, I so identify with that, of just the ability to move freely is everything to me. So I think that's very, very well said.
Yes. Thank you. And I don't want to carry us over on time, but I'm so curious because it's your favorite question. What would be your answer?
I mean, I think success has changed over time and also not. Again, that my young self was myself. Now, I always say, I walked onto a D1 team. I did very intentional things as an 18-year-old, aka zero. So I sometimes channel my young self because I was more intentional and I just didn't know I just did. And I think me having the ability to have that freedom consistently and then serve the purpose, show up and be impactful, be useful. I don't know if you know Bill Withers, but the song "Use Me Up" is always in the kind of the back of my mind. I say it's my CrossFit theme because, use it, use whatever you got. As long as I'm here, let's live as usefully as possible and give what we got and enjoy the ride. And I think that's success.
Oh, that was beautifully said. Yeah, I love that. Now I'm going to have to go look up that song.
Oh, it's so good. It's "Use Me Up" because I'm sure to use you too. But Bill Withers is awesome. So it's a whole vibe. But yeah, it's actually, and it's a good, one of my friends uses as a cool down song in her yoga class. So it might be a good thing. But hit us with where do we find you? Websites, social handles. I know you're all over the place, so give us the details.
Yes, please do find me. Let me know what you thought of our conversation. AshtonAugust.com. YouAligned.com is my company. And then I am on social media as I am Ashton August.
Boom. Let's go. Go check out this beautiful soul. She's doing big things and so authentically well done, especially in the wellness space. I have ethos in this. There's been a lot of times. So when I say it's a good, genuine human, I really, really mean it. And minimal smoke and mirrors. She's out here really working her ass off and doing what she can to make this world a better place. So go see what she's got going on.
Thank you for seeing me. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you for having me. And thank you so much to everyone tuning in. I'm so grateful.
Hey, let's give a little love to our sponsors. Thank you, Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. Lux Neuro wants to meet you. If you're ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com to schedule a consultation today. And Colorado Clownfish Swim Club, swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports, so go waterproof your family today at coloradoclownfish.com. Again, Ashton, appreciate the time and energy. Go see her. She's got this retreat coming up. We'll get this out before then, and then we'll connect. So all my Colorado people, look for something. I'm also manifesting some in real life speaking opportunities out here in Colorado, so I'll ping you for that, and we'll see where stuff lands.
Sounds amazing. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.